Hello, my lovelies. I'm so excited to spend this week with you talking about self-kindness because you all are so amazing. And it's so easy to see when we are looking at our friends and our family and our kids. And sometimes we are the last person to see it in ourselves. So I'm going to come on all week and talk to you about what I know from the meditation tradition about self-kindness practices. But the thing I wanted to talk about today is what I think is our biggest misconception about self-kindness. And when we're talking about self-kindness, what we really have to start with is the reason why we need it in the first place, because there's a really famous story about a conversation that the Dalai Lama had with a bunch of scientists in one of their conferences, where he was trying to understand the translation for self-hatred and thought that the translator had misunderstood, because there's no concept for these kinds of things in Tibetan culture, nor is there a word for guilt. So why do we need self-kindness? Why isn't this something that is just easy and natural? We have to start talking about the voices in our head, and particularly the critical voices in our heads. The voice that my teacher calls the bully. And this voice is the voice that wakes up. When you wake up in the morning, it's there, and it immediately wants things and immediately doesn't want other things. And it immediately is telling you all the things that you should have done and all the things that you didn't do well enough. And if we become aware of this voice rather than letting it just chat away in our heads, we start to realize that this self-critical voice is going on in the background of our life almost all of the time. And this is so we have different voices. Sometimes it's the same voice, sometimes it's a bunch of different voices, and these voices say things like gosh, you really messed that up, or you really should have done that better, or this isn't your best, or that person can do it, why can't you, or all the things, you're not good enough for that yet. So I think, as if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I have those voices in my head, then this is this moment of great compassion, that we realize that we are all in the same boat with this. We all have these voices in our heads that are telling us these very critical and negative things, and they're bringing us down. Now, the biggest misconception about self-kindness to me is a misconception about this voice, because we take this voice to be truth. Without really investigating where these voices come from, these critical messages that are coming to us and playing in the background, of our minds all the time, we just assume that they're true, that they're sourcing from a place that's true, and that these voices, these thoughts, I could say, are trying to help us out. They're trying to keep us on the hook, they're trying to keep us doing our best, and they're trying to keep us from making mistakes, and they're trying to, help us out in all kinds of ways. And so we believe them. And so the first step in a practice of self-kindness is really to start questioning this voice. This self-critical voice that we have in our heads, we have to listen to it and actually hear it. And sometimes that can be incredibly embarrassing, even to ourselves, to admit what's actually going on in our heads. But let me reassure you, there are crazy things that go on in all of our heads. And when we shine a light on these things, then we can really do something that we can't do if they're in the shadows, which is to investigate them and ask whether they're true. And so we think that when a voice is telling us, you're not good enough for this, or you really should have done better than that, or this person can do it, You should be able to do that. Why are you not able to? We just assume that this voice is right, and we assume that it's sourcing from something that's true. And we assume that we need to listen to it or terrible things are going to happen. And the voice will tell you that terrible things will happen. There'll be a big disaster. If you don't listen to the voice that really beats you up about getting things done and, all the things, that somehow you will stop doing anything, you will, that this voice is keeping us on the hook, that it's keeping us on track, let's say. And the reality is that this voice has an agenda that has nothing to do with your happiness or well-being. This voice is not sourcing from a place of truth. And when we start to look at the voice itself, or the many voices in our heads, the many thoughts that come into our heads that are self-critical, we start to unpack where they've come from. Sometimes we'll never know where these voices came from. Sometimes we're very clear that they've come from a specific person or experience in our life. But most of these voices come from outside. They come from our experiences, times when we were doing our best, parents and teachers that said something to us that we took in, and we started to self-regulate that voice in our heads. So admitting and understanding that the thoughts that come into your head about yourself are not true is a profound shift happens when you start to look at your thoughts that way. So that is really, for me, the biggest misconception about self-kindness, is that the self-critical voice is telling you the truth and that it's your friend and it's helping you out, when the reality is it's the biggest thing holding you back. It sucks away our energy. It sucks away our attention from the things that we could be doing. It tells us things about ourselves that aren't necessarily true, and therefore prevents us from living up to our authentic self, to our, whatever our big-hearted potential is in the world. And it prevents us from really experiencing the joy of who we are. So, as I said, sort of the first step really in self-kindness practice is to recognize the voice in your head. Notice what it's saying and start to realize that it's not you, and that it isn't true. That sometimes we come up with thoughts in our head that are completely fabricated and made up and don't have anything to do with reality. And so what I want to end with, because I'll be here all week, I'm going to sort of drip feed the things that I've learned in throughout the week, but sometimes when we're talking about self-kindness and we want to be kinder to ourselves in our heads, and we're tired of that voice beating us up all the time, we think that self-kindness is something that we have to put in, that it's something that we have to get more of. And what I've found from my own experience is that when we start to look at the self-critical voice, start to take it less seriously, it takes away its power over us. And self-kindness, self-worthiness just arises naturally. So in a way, self-kindness is just the natural arising of a truer nature of who we are when we start to let go of the self-critical voices in our heads. And meditation is amazing at helping us to have a tool and methodology to learn how to do that. So I'm going to leave you there today. I'm so glad to spend the week with you celebrating Self-Kindness Awareness Week, because we all need a little bit of more awareness of how to be kind to ourselves. And if you have a friend or loved one who could use a little bit of this in their life, like they're awesome and they don't know how awesome they are, then send them this link, send them tag them in the post on Instagram that is all about Self-Kindness Awareness Week, and get them in on this. So yeah, they can also just get in on all the good stuff this week, and this is something that we do for ourselves, and this is something that we do for literally everyone in our life. Because when there's this beautiful quote that I read recently in a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle, that there's no such thing as one-way liberation. When you free yourself of the self-critical voice in your head, when you learn how to do that, you not only experience the joy and sort of liberation or freedom of not carrying that weight around all the time, but you show other people that it's possible for normal people like us to do this. This doesn't have to be something that you're special to do. It really is something that's your birthright as a human being on this planet. We just need to have a methodology to do it. Tomorrow I'm going to be here again on Instagram, and I'm going to be talking about how we can create a foundation for our self-kindness in our life, how we can start to create a base to start practicing more. And practicing is really about a mind shift that we carry throughout our day, so it doesn't require a lot of time, which is the good news for us busy people. So find me tomorrow. I'm not sure what time I'll be on, but I'll be here, and the videos will be here. And I'm sending you all lots of luminous love, and I will see you again tomorrow.